Welcome to the 8th of January 2023 Possibility War episode. Last week we finished the Trail of the Dead. Ginger ran an excellent game and we had a lot of fun with it, I think. Tonight we begin the very next adventure, which of course is The Heart of Ukhaan, which was written by Darrell Hayhurst. It took me a little bit to find out who actually wrote that, but it's a good adventure. I think it's going to be fun for my players since they did the Day 1 Living Land adventure starting in early 2020. So this is our 11th adventure, but it's going back to something that my players did in the very beginning. With Day 1 Living Land. So tonight we're going to get into the adventure. They're going to have to make a choice about where to go. Their characters have been rocking it through 11 different missions now, and it's kind of they've kind of been running ragged, and I've been trying to find a way to give them their characters a legitimate break. They've already had one at like the 3-month mark, and now we're getting to the 6-month mark of the war, and hopefully I can provide them with something good. Tonight we'll be starting The Heart of Ukhaan. I know I've got it listed as Act 1, The Heart of Ukhaan, but it is only a 3-scene, 1-act adventure. I'm doing this to kind of get them into the entire Space Gods Akasha storyline, as it were, because we're getting ready to go into the second part of the Relics of Power trilogy, the original Relics of Power trilogy, and I want them to kind of have a feel for a more or less constant storyline as we're going along. So, how about a bit of explanation concerning the Space Gods? For those of you who are not familiar with the primary underlying story line of Torg role-playing the Possibility Wars and Torg Eternity, let me make a short introduction to the Space Gods, known as the Akashan race in the Torg mythos. One of the big things about Torg is it does have a background story about the Akashans, which are supposed to be these space gods, if you will. They have some pretty high technology. They deal with a lot of biological entities, which they kind of join with. At least that's the way it was in first edition. We're going to have to see how it is in second edition. Anyway, the underlying storyline is that the only way to defeat all of the High Lords in Torg is to have the space gods join up with all of the fifth column elements of the High Lords. In other words, the rebels, the ones that go against the High Lords of their own realities, and to tie everything together, the Akashans are supposed to be there. Well, there's a background story about how you get the Akashans to come to Earth, but the problem is the Akashans are kind of screwed. Okay, they are really messed up themselves. They have really, really high power, but their numbers have been decimated almost to nothing, and the power that they have is probably going to have to be given to core Earthers and to everyone from all of the other realities to help fight against the High Lords. Will that be enough to get rid of the High Lords? I don't know, because this version of Torg Eternity is supposed to be a much harsher version than what Torg role-playing the Possibility Wars was. Now, I can't imagine how that's going to be, but I have heard some things that the developers of the game want to do. They kind of want to turn High Lords against each other because they've been expanding against each other's realms and everything like that, and of course that is bound to bring problems between the High Lords themselves. So that's one way for them to get rid of the High Lords in Torg. Will it actually happen that way? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. But it's been 5 years, over 5 years, in fact 5.5 years, since Torg Eternity first went to Kickstarter, to a crowdfunding, to be able to get the game out. And they finally got all 7 of the realities out. And they may do a source book on Core Earth, but I think that's going to be during year 2 of the war. So the first year of the war, which we're only 6 months into in Possibility War, is it's supposed to start with some kind of crowdfunding or Kickstarter or whatever this coming year. And then we're going to find out how the war develops from there. Well, I hope that it's. I don't know how it's going to be, but I'm hoping that it develops in such a way where it's not so thoroughly confusing that and from what I've read, it's going to be thoroughly confusing. But I'm hoping it won't be so thoroughly confusing that I can't deal with it in my game, that I literally have to take things step by step, or I have to step back to first edition and run those games, those adventures, in order to make the universe actually work. Okay, because frankly, the way things sound, it's gonna be really hard to deal with what's going on in the war, if it doesn't kind of slow down a little bit. Okay, I'll have to be really picky and choosy. I haven't even begun the first year adventures yet. I've run a couple of adventures from the Delphi missions, but I haven't gone that far yet. The Torg mythos lists the Ukhans as having been friends and mentors with the Aztecs, Incans, Mayans, etc. Now, for my part, they were more than that. It is my belief that the Ukhans were also supporters and mentors for the Native American tribes of North America, and perhaps are even made up of the Indian races from around the world, but most particularly in the United States, that were seated here on Earth in the remote past of what is now our core Earth. Once, they were the most powerful race of spacefaring beings that ever existed, and the coming of the High Lords and Darkness devices across the multiverse actually caught them by surprise enough they didn't have time to study the advanced technological, spiritual, social, and magical means available at their command before they themselves were identified as a threat to the High Lords with their varying agendas and targeted for destruction. Now that you've heard all that, you know the general line the game follows and what I am keeping in mind as I move our play group of friends and players forward. So, we're going to start with Scene 1, Landing Zone, and we'll see how it goes from there. All of you are called up to the briefing room, and Sirlane Fisk says, I know that you've been through a lot today, but we need to put you in someplace else. Now, when you guys were coming in, you saw a Seahawk helicopter that had a bunch of Storm Knights and a couple of soldiers on it that was flying off back towards the United States. He says, when we get back to the United States, I need you to go look for an Eternity Shard. And he says, he looks at Peaches and Chris, and he says, you two have faced this territory before. Do you remember the crystal tower that you found on day 1? Okay,
yeah.
The Ukhaan tower,
yeah.
From your report? That's where you're going back to.
I had a little funny thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
Everybody's nodding in agreement, right? And I'm just like, very well, but I'm billing you for my tailor. Because I look at all the holes and stuff on my poor dress.
Yeah, and don't forget, I don't know if spider stains come out.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, sure, spider stains must come out. That's a Yakatui thing.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yakatui.
So, anyway, he says, rest up. You are actually our backup team. This is something dangerous, but we couldn't send you in right away because, well, you've been busy for this day. And he says we're going to steam back to New York, and we'll see if you need to undertake this or not. And of course, as players, you're going to need to undertake this. So the Ronald Reagan went from Tennessee out to the Caribbean, the Bahamas, basically. Okay, an island out there. That was the right location, wasn't it, Ginger?
Yeah, the island's no longer there, though.
Yo, no. That particular island is no longer there. Yeah, I got that. It kind of swam away, swam away, however you want to put it. So, it only took 1 day to get out there. I looked at the distance and how far you could go, and it takes approximately 22 and a half hours to get out there. So I figured 1 day to get out there, one whole day on the island, and then 1 day to get back. Well, when you guys came back when all of us went back to the Ronald Reagan from that island, it was evening or night, right?
Yeah, the sun had set.
The sun had set by that time, which is a good thing. And the ship, maybe not immediately, but eventually started steaming back to the U.S., closer to New York, and all of you that were on board at that time were told that a potential mission was coming up in New York, and so the briefing is actually going to start on the Ronald Reagan as you guys are pulling up to that area so that you can go. A Delphi agent gathers you all for immediate transport to the USS Ronald Reagan. You're already there, okay? Once again off the east coast of the United States, near Manhattan in the Atlantic, just outside the Pure Zone. Aboard the ship and delivering this briefing in person is the leader of the Delphi Council, Quinn Sebastian himself. Quinn is a rough-looking man in his 60s with close-cropped gray hair and craggy worry lines in his face. Even his voice sounds weather-worn and deep enough to carry authority with it, you hear, as he begins his briefing. Now, I'm not going to do Quinn Sebastian's voice. I've got a sore throat kind of right now. It's not great. I don't want to aggravate it, so I'm just going to read. The Delphi Council received a report from someone who found something extraordinary in the wreckage of Manhattan. A strange tower from another world, the graveyard of a realm reaped by the High Lords long ago. You found a tower similar to it a few months ago, the day the Maelstrom bridges appeared. If it wasn't the same tower. And it's reappeared here. Based on the report, we suspect it contains an eternity shard, pure possibility energy condensed into physical form. Unfortunately, the Adinos seem to have come to the same conclusion. Some lizard warlord that folks are calling One Eye has surrounded the place, and he's got his brutes trying to break in. As you're more or less fresh off the carnival ride you had retrieving the Destiny map pieces, being closest to Manhattan Island and your familiarity with the tower, it seems luck is with us today. I know you're tired. You've been going almost non-stop for 6 months, since the war began. But can you put in a bit more?
Do we really even have a choice?
You always have
game.
a choice. Chris?
Follow along, but I'm billing you for my tailor.
It's been 24 hours and your dress has been more or less repaired. Something about aircraft carriers that you should know is they've got around 5,000 people on board at any given time, and among those people are tailors and all kinds of stuff. Now, typically, they only serve the Navy side of things, but in this particular instance, they're serving Storm Knights, and Storm Knights, especially those coming out of the Living Land, which you're getting ready to go into, have clothes that are torn in certain spots that are special. Okay, they kind of reveal a little skin here and there without revealing, the goods. So, but in this particular instance, they happen to have, your color of green, and we're able to patch up your clothing. So
Lovely.
you've got your dress back. You can actually feel the edges of some of the patches under your bodice, but they're silky and kind of comfortable, if that helps. I don't know.
Well,
Oh,
so long as they aren't visible to others to make it look like I have a shabby dress. Heaven forbid.
well, you may want to change out for dungarees then, because where you're going, that dress will get torn to bits.
Very well then. I shall find an outfit more suitable.
Go back to the tailors. They should be able to put something together for you, especially since we now have an integrated Navy. In fact, all of you who want to leave your clothing, your normal clothing behind here, are welcome to.
I wouldn't call my clothing personal, but whatever. I do want to ask, personally, I'm up for another fight, but do we have anybody else we have to worry about besides the Warlock and his gang? What about the people that killed Artorias?
Yeah. Well, that the death of Artorias, your fellow Storm Knight, was several hundred miles away. The tribe that you're dealing with here are the Red Jaws, instead of any of the others. And reading from the report, the statement that you gave for your report to Sir Fisk, it sounds to me like the Edinos didn't kill your colleague at all. It sounds like that was done by somebody from Pan-Pacifica. That's
I don't care who it was. I really don't care.
Well,
they killed my family. Whoever was involved, besides my fellow Storm Knights, it's not going to end well for them. We'll just say that.
Well, the samurai who actually dealt the killing blow is dead.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I've read that as well.
In my book. I'm not going to let this lie.
Quinn looks at Chris. Yes, you always have a choice. You never have to go anywhere you don't want to go, especially the living land, because it is especially dangerous. However,
I meant in a rhetorical sense, though. I said, it's like, do we really have a choice? It's like, what else are we going to do?
Well,
we can sit around and get drunk, but we can do that any other day.
There is the other Storm Knight team that we sent in yesterday evening. We haven't heard back from them since they landed. They landed, they made a report, and then we haven't heard anything from them since. So we need you to go in and do two things. Yes, while you need to get to that crystal tower and see if there is indeed an eternity shard there and retrieve it, but we also need you to be on the lookout for other members of that team. There was a new member on that team, and Jace explained to me that he was going to leave her on the beach to watch out, to watch their back, and I presume that she's still there unless she went looking for others. She comes from the Cyber Papacy and doesn't know a whole lot about the living land at this point. So we need you to look out for her, and we've been trying to establish radio contact with her at least, and it's still no good. I think the dominant zone has a special bent toward leaving radio traffic out, so it doesn't allow any radio traffic to proceed anywhere. Since it's
fun.
Yeah, since it's the most primitive of all of the realities on Earth right now, I am not imagining that you're going to have much luck with radios in that portion of Manhattan Island.
So I guess once we enter that area, we're kind of on our own, huh?
Yes, I would recommend leaving behind any tech that could really cause you some problems. It will be well looked after. We have plenty of lockers that you can put things into and lock them down. We won't even sell you the lock. We'll give you the lock.
I mean, my tech's kind of permanent and it's painful to remove, so...
So I've heard.
Yeah, it's not great.
So in completing my answer, whether you can actually resist going in or not is up to you. All of you have been working, well, I know for a fact you and Peaches have been working really hard over the past 6 months. Rios has been on assignment in Aurora, where we asked her to keep an eye on things until she got hooked up with Nightbird and Artorias, and but she's been there for 6 months. As for these others, I don't know. So we'll have to figure that out as we're going along. So what about the rest of you? Are you all right going in?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I don't see a problem with that.
Chris, Peaches, Toma, and Rios got her dress back, but then, so did Rios agree also?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then here's the gig. Get in quick, get the shard before One Eye does, and get out of there. We've had our eye on...
I just want to say, I think the only thing that's not going to quite work out is quick, from my experience.
Perhaps
yeah,
not.
and do we know it?
Then
do we have a description of the shard? Do we know what we're looking for?
Unfortunately, no. We can't seem to get image penetration on this particular location, and to be honest with you, the few pictures that we've had of the crystalline structure actually faded over time, and this was digital. These were digital images, and they faded. They pixelized out.
Oh.
I'm thinking... Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to assume that means it's very hardwired to the living land then, huh?
It's gotta be.
Well, I think the crystalline structure is alien to the living land. We've been finding all kinds of all manner of technological devices and buildings and locations and stuff like that pop in and out of the living land at random. We've begun to call them wonders.
Cool name.
Because like the tower that you've got there, I've got to be honest with you, I think that tower belonged to a race of folks who used biotechnology for the betterment of themselves, unlike what Tharkold has done with biotechnology being used for occult purposes. So we've had our eye on this One Eye for the past month. This Adinos is tenacious, power hungry, and not to be messed with. There's a whole city full of Adinos that want to skin you alive and wear your bones like jewelry. So only engage them when you have to. The best way to get you inserted is by boat. The weather is clear enough, but we've seen it turn rough without notice. We can't afford to wait for nightfall, so it's likely you'll be spotted on the way in. Once you hit the beach...
Joy.
Yeah, and don't fall in. There's mosasaurs in there.
Yeah, you don't want to be playing around with that. Once you
hammer, two blades, and bullets put their names on it.
The problem is, out of game. No. You're role playing, dude. Don't you dare apologize.
That's my character apologizing.
Oh, okay. I'm getting mixed up here. So, GM note. I found out that a mosasaur is actually a humongous creature. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the very first adventure that we played where a mosasaur attacked the ferry, that Peaches and Chris were on, um, that was an itty bitty tiny little alligator thing that I used for a token. The thing's head would have been the size of that alligator. So, yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You know the big fish that jumps out of the water in
Park.
yeah, Jurassic Park?
Jurassic World. Yeah, Jurassic.
Yeah.
And eats like the shark? Yeah, that's a Mosasaurus.
Yes. As soon as I saw the picture, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Uh-huh. Alright, so
Oof.
once you hit the beach, you're probably going to meet some resistance along whatever path you plan, so prepare yourselves accordingly. Intel's suggestion is to go through Battery Park. Unfortunately, it's been turned into a field of gossbog. But we're certain it's at least a week before the next planting is due to emerge. However, that means most Adinos avoid it, so that's a potential quote-unquote clear path. Another recommendation was that if you land up past the park, you'll avoid the gossbog, but war-bands of Adinos roam all over that area. Now, we can issue you silencers for your smaller weapons, but we have nothing for shotguns or large caliber firearms. Survival packs, of course, are available for this assignment if you don't already have one. Hang on a second, somebody beat me. Yeah, that's a Mosasaurus.
If I may say, I mean, my gun's kind of built into my arm. I don't think I can get a silencer for it.
Whoa!
Oh,
Yeah.
was not aware you had a firearm in your arm.
The theft.
It's a literal firearm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Quinn looks at Chris and he says, "I'm going to let that one pass. You guys have been out in the woods, in the weeds too long."
All
All right, so
that's one of my favorite parts of the day.
there's
That is the quote of the day.
all right, so there's a building across the way. Here's the problem. It's dilapidated because it's in the living land, and the natural laws of the living land tend to tear more modern things apart. And it's a building that was being used for helping to build something else before the crystalline structure appeared. So there is a crane, a massive crane up there that you might be able to knock down. And then you could probably cross higher because you're not going to want to be on the street trying to get in there. You won't survive 5 minutes with that many Adinos around you.
Yeah.
Now,
I can agree with that.
as an alternate, we can attempt to provide a grappling hook or a couple of grappling hooks and some air cartridges. But from my personal study of the tower, I didn't see a whole lot of places to hook onto. So, Adinos don't like dead things like buildings. So those should be clear, except for any vagrants or core earth holdouts. Trust is a luxury you may not have here. So recon showed... What's that?
Just like Darkhold.
Yeah, basically. Anyway, if you want, you can try and knock that crane down on top of that other building. It's angled at such a way that you might be able to actually successfully do that. So that you could break into the upper levels of that crystal tower. But then you're going to have to make
Easier.
it... Might be. It might be. Now, from what we have been able to see, there are a lot of lactin in the area. So basically your smaller pterodactyls, the ones that have Adeno scouts on them. So you got to watch out for those. Those are at the heights and might become a factor in whether you use that crane or not. But the lactin are also the main reason for inserting by boat instead of aircraft. The lactin have already taken down several of our C-130s, and anybody trying to get in by parachute, the parachute collapses on them because the tech axiom in there does not support the concept of parachutes. So if you try and put somebody, even a storm knight in there, surges tend to increase when people go in by canopy than even with aircraft. So it's like the realm is doing everything that it can to keep out any opposition.
So if we're going in by boat, how well is that going to work? What kind of boat are we using?
We've got a couple of Rybats that you can use. We've got a team of SEALs. It's actually just 3 guys who are staying back from injuries suffered in Venezuela recently. They'll drive the Rybats, and then they can ride those back.
So kind of a drop-off thing, huh?
Yeah.
How close?
Well,
how close can they get without the boats being damaged of any sort?
the SEALs are possibility rated, and they're in full recovery right now. They're not completely recovered. They're still suffering from injuries, but they're good enough that they can at least drop you off, and they have possibility energy they can use to keep the boats intact until they can get out of the pure area. We're going to be dropping you in a dominant area just inside of that pure zone. So, but you have to go through the pure zone, at least the corner of it, to get to the beach.
Okay.
All right.
And I know I might be skipping ahead and that kind of stuff, but the party that was sent in, how many people are we looking for specifically?
4.
Okay.
We actually with actually 5. I forgot about the one from the Cyber Papacy, the new knight that we have. Let me just go ahead and do this. Justin, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I was just.
All right. So Katsumi is a relatively new Storm Knight, having come from Cyber France. The reason for leaving Cyber France to come and serve the Delphi Council around the world is a couple-fold. Okay, one, you've seen what the Cyber Papacy. Actually, wait a minute. I've got to ask this: are you naturally from the Cyber Papacy, or were you transformed from Core Earth? Because if you're transformed from Core Earth axioms, then what I was about to tell you is not going to make sense. But if you come naturally from the Cyber Papacy and you cross the Maelstrom Bridge to help Earth, to help this Earth, then it'll make sense.
All right, if that's easier, I can go with that. I'll roll whichever way makes it easy.
Okay, so probably your original COSM was Marketplace, which is the Pan-Pacifica, but then somehow you got co-opted on a different world and became part of the Cyber Papacy. Voila, Cyber Papacy Ninja. Okay, and then you got to the USS Ronald Reagan because, number one, you wanted to help the people of Core Earth retain their world, because you've seen worlds broken before. And I want you to think about string theory and multiple universes, universal copies and stuff like that, where things are like one-off here and there. But with the string that you're on, you have come to this Core Earth, and you wanted to talk to the leadership of the Delphi Council. They let you do that by transporting you to the USS Ronald Reagan, and then last evening, having been briefed about the same thing that our regular group has been briefed about, you flew off in the helicopter. No, I'm sorry, not in the helicopter, in a boat. Obviously not flying off, but anyway, you got to shore around closer to the river than the Gospog field. The Gospog are basically undead plant creatures. They're undead people who have plants that help animate them to life. Make sense?
Yep.
They're the people that have fallen in this war.
Yeah, people. Well, yeah, storm knights and ordinary folks that have fallen. They get a big nasty seed put into the middle of their chest, which starts to grow a kind of a bloody, deadly, nasty, gory plant throughout them, and then they rise to unlife as some of the nastiest zombies you'll ever see. So anyway, you went with that crew. And since you were more or less brand new to the Delphi Council, maybe with them for a week or two at most, and you never ran into the current group, the leader of that Storm Knight group asked you to stay behind and try to keep radio communication if possible. And of course, as you've heard, that was definitely impossible. And now you wait silently on a beach for a rescue team. Since your other folks have not contacted you, they didn't make any effort to come back, if they were able to come back. And so that's where your in to the group is. Fair enough?
Okay.
Okay. So Quinn will attempt to answer any questions that you may have. But let me tell you some of the things that he does have. He has some relatively grainy satellite images of the area. He's got weather reports from the last 36 hours, plus what the meteorologists on the Ronald Reagan have said things are going to look like over the next 4 days or 5 days. And he's had a few voice reports from Adinos contacts within the city. Now, those were delivered typically by some kind of bird, carrier pigeon, or even a beast rider on a lacton that is on the Delphi Council's side. He knows, let's see, these contacts may or may not be present in the area due to the danger there that is now prevalent because of all of the Adinos that have come into the area of that tower. Okay? Apparently it's getting a lot of noise, which is why it's very highly recommended that all of you go high and try and climb over or whatever. Let's see, the boat for the mission is a small, quiet attack craft. It's what the Navy SEALs designed for themselves, 2 decades ago, and which has been working well ever since. Yes?
Did we manage to get some climbing gear? You said we were going to take this crane
Yes.
up high and knock it down. You need ropes and grappling hooks and gloves and other, and maybe safety harnesses type gear.
Okay. That's a good idea. Okay, where do I have the climbing gear at? I know somebody who already has some. Good call. Okay, so climbing gear is Tech 23. Let's see. The price or value on that is a 10. For those of you who would like to have some, it's the price on it is only $100, but some of you are probably not going to have that. So if you would please, if you would prefer to do it this way, go ahead and give me some persuasion rolls, and I will try and keep up on them.
Okay, I'll try.
Well, I mean,
it's gonna go well.
If you don't need climbing gear, it's not really going to make any sense to roll for it again. So
I mean, I don't, but would it be just standard?
well, yeah, it's just standard. But don't forget to click the skill persuasion. Okay.
Yeah, I got it clicked.
Okay, that way.
I'm going to spend on this. I want the gear to succeed.
Okay, so go ahead and spend.
Come on! First roll of the night.
You rolled privately.
Who rolled privately?
And here's
Ginger.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
So yeah, we can change that.
Here.
Well, guess I'm free climbing.
Okay, so Ginger, do you know how to change that?
How do I change this one that I previously rolled?
Okay, so click on the little gray bar there that says Ginger, right click on it, and you'll see a menu pop up at the bottom that says delete or reveal to everyone. Okay, does everybody see that now?
Yes, but I'm going to spend a possibility. Or
Yes.
do we have did we deal cards just in case?
We have not dealt cards yet because we're just getting getting ready.
All right. Anyway, my persuasion's pretty much along the lines of, how bad do you really want this mission to succeed? Shouldn't you equip us with climbing gear? Maybe all of us? Just to cover the people who also might have failed. But
Like me.
Well, okay, so you're trying to persuade them that you need this specifically for a mission?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you already rolled. I was going to give you a bonus of 1 for that, but so let's see. Okay. So I know Ginger made it. So Peaches, Rios. Rios, did you want to roll for Andon?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so Peaches, Rios. Remy, you really can't solve that mishap by adding a possibility. It doesn't work that way.
You go up to them and they say like, "Yep, there's no more. In fact, you're gonna have to pay us $50 for just wasting our time."
I mean, my hands are metal. I could just thrust through the wall as I climb.
Okay, Ginger, what were you gonna say?
I'd say they're probably, the Bursar's office is probably like, if one more person asks for the same damn thing, I'm gonna.
Chris, do you wanna piss off the quartermaster?
You know what? I mean, I might as well, have it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. I
Well,
need
Andon rolls successfully.
persuasion. Standard 10.
Yep.
And roll.
Wow, you're
Ah,
1
just
point
barely a failure.
off. Do you have you don't have any cards.
He's got a lot of possibility.
Yeah.
Let's say, okay, I'm going to cheat here a little bit. Let's say that Peach's little speech to the quartermaster gave you the +1 since she didn't apply it. How's that?
Oh man.
So okay, so let me open.
I think the canonical kind of thing is where he goes up to the quartermaster. The quartermaster just shoots him down outright, like no more. We have no more. And then I go up just a little while later. It's like, can I have one more? Can I have one, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one in the back.
Yeah.
Nationalist.
That's
Like Russians.
That's it.
All right. So would you please make sure that you've got climbing gear, because I just added it to your sheets. And I will check Andon to make sure. Climbing gear. There it is. Oh yeah, and climbing gear is supposed to do something positive for you. Climbing gear, use dex rather than strength. Does it? Oh, okay. Never mind.
That's advantageous for me, because I have a higher dex than strength.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that. So that's done. Now I want to go ahead and address experience points from the last adventure. I think it's Chris and Peaches that both have 25 each that they could spend, which is that's bank. Okay, that's a lot.
How much?
Huh? Open your sheet and find out.
None, it says.
What? Okay,
My
then
cash
it's somebody else. Okay, Chris has 25. Peaches has 15.
I have 15 bucks?
You've got 15 experience points available.
Oh, 15.
It's Rios that has 25. Tomislav has nothing, And then Katsumi, of course, has nothing. Justin was very circumspect in how he spent his points and got them all out there, which I really appreciate. So now listen, here's what I'm going to do with the experience points. If we come upon something that is really needed in the game, I will let you spend points to get like for a skill, say a 1, okay? One add in it. So you would be able to spend 1 point and get 1 add in that skill just so you can use it. Okay, that does not necessarily apply to not unskilled skills. So the bolded skills that you can't use unless you have an add in them, you won't be able you still won't be able to put anything into them. But those are very few skills. If you need to improve something else to kind of save the group's butt during the adventure, let's talk about it and let's see what we can come up with as a consensus from the entire group. Okay? Otherwise, we can either try to spend those experience points at the beginning of the next game session or before we go into the next adventure. I kind of jumped ahead on this. This last 6 weeks, I'm telling you, it has been really difficult. So now the question that I have for you all is this. Do you want to land on the beach near the river and take the riverway to get towards those buildings, or do you want to land at Battery Park and go through the Gossbog field?
Where did the last group land?
Actually, he doesn't know. Quinn does not know where they landed.
That's
They did not
that
tell
seems
him.
Weird to me.
Yeah, they did not tell him where they were going to land. But you guys would need to. Okay, I'm going to cheat here again. I need to know where you guys are going so I can place Katsumi correctly.
Personally, I would not want to tiptoe through a pond of Gossbog ever.
Okay.
Agreed. And we did go down the river. Remember, we boated before.
Yep.
The Trail to Philly.
Oh, yeah, I could.
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember. That was in your day 1.
Yeah. So I'm more familiar with that.
Way of transporting the living land than anything.
Okay.
Yeah. That,
Well, okay.
I'm sorry, make myself.
does any of us have water vehicles?
I know I don't. I think I have land.
I have air vehicles.
Oh well, yeah. No, I've got no vehicles.
Well, don't forget, water vehicles is you can use it unskilled, okay, without even possibilities. But if you use it unskilled, you cannot roll again on 20s, only on 10s.
My total for water vehicles is 10.
Okay. Well, and again,
say real quick.
Uh-huh.
Can I just say I made myself laugh really badly. I had to mute myself.
What?
But when you talk about like, tiptoeing to the, I said I made myself laugh really badly. I had to mute myself. When we were talking like tiptoeing through the bog, I said to myself, I'd rather tiptoe through the tulips.
Oh. I thought you said you peed yourself. I was like, wait a minute, you're a very young man.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
For our Philly, I did give myself 1 add in water vehicles, so I do have.
Okay.
So what's your total?
So let me.
Or
My total is 11.
So Ginger, water vehicles.